be the one to break it to you, but sex education of the past failed us. Because birds and bees, they don't fuck. Welcome to Birds and Bees Don't Fuck, a podcast where we learn exactly how bad our formative sex education, or lack thereof, really was. I'm your host, Arielle Zadok. I'm an intimacy coordinator and sexologist. My guest today is an LA-based burlesque performer, producer, teacher, and pinup princess. Welcome to the show, Miss Spent Youth. Yeah. Hi, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, you must be in just like decompression mode after Hollywood Burlesque Festival, because we did the Hollywood Burlesque Festival episode, which was so much fun.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
Oh my God. It was so much fun being there. We had a great time.
Oh, good. And I got a lot of great feedback from the performers about you.
Oh,
They said it was so fun chatting with you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's so fun. They were all great. I mean, they were such great conversations. They were like, that was the first time that I ever did like quick conversations. But it was, they were just great. So they all had so much wisdom and so many fun things to offer. So it was great.
Good. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
But how are you feeling post everything?
We call it glitter crash, and it's
oh my God, I love that.
I mean, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It's, I kind of always plan like the week after a big festival. I know that there's going to be like all this adrenaline, and then now I'm sitting by myself in my house,
Right.
and I'm taking a leisurely bath, and it's great. But like part of you like misses all the camaraderie and all the sparkle and all the like getting dolled up and all the amazing performances. And then you're kind of like, yeah, it's like this like kind of crash. And then there's a bunch of post-festival work to do.
Yeah.
So like, I've been almost kind of like just now getting back to my normal performance schedule. I, kept my March very, very light, and my early April. And now I'm going to Viva Las Vegas for a week. So
oh my God, when is that?
It starts Wednesday. So I'm going to be performing, I forget now, I think it's like 13 shows in 5 days.
Wow. oh my God, 13 shows in 5 days.
It's a lot. But
wow.
Worth it.
But it's so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, stripper summer camp.
Yeah. Stripper summer camp. Oh my God. I love, what a dream. I want to go to stripper summer camp.
Anytime.
Oh my God. I actually just started doing, there are all these different, and you can speak to this so much obviously better than I can, but there are like kind of two schools of burlesque. There's old traditional, like classic glam burlesque, which I fucking love, which you are so good at.
Oh,
I think the image of last year's burlesque festival of all of these performers undressing you on stage like a fucking queen and goddess and royalty. And oh my God, I was like, I want to be her when I grow up. This is amazing.
It was fun.
Yeah. So that was like one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And then there's Ruby, you're right in the way.
Yeah,
Ruby. She always wants to get into it.
Oh my God, I love it. She's a star.
She is a star. Darling, it's not about you. It's always about Ruby.
Yes.
I don't know how long she was sitting there, but that's fine.
Be honest.
But then there's also the neo burlesque,
Yeah.
which I think is so much fun because it leaves so much room for like weird creativity. And I will say for me, the thing that I've just like literally this week discovered, which is why it's so fun that you're here now.
I love it.
So I started doing shibari and self-tying. I bought string. I brought rope on Tuesday. I was at a friend's comedy show at the Pleasure Chest, which is great.
Nice. Yeah.
Who doesn't love comedy at a sex shop?
Love.
And so I bought some rope because we get a discount while we're there. And I've been tying every night. And like the second or third night, I think it was, I was like, I want to do this with rhinestones. I want to do this with rhinestones and glitter and be the shibari showgirl.
Okay, it's happening. I'm signing you up for my next class.
Yes.
And we're doing this. I love that.
Oh my God.
But no, I mean, you're exactly right. Like I think why burlesque has become so popular is because there really is space for everybody, for
Yeah.
anything. And it's like the creativity that I see is just off the charts, and
Mhm.
not even just at big festivals like the Hollywood Burlesque Festival, where people are coming from all over the world and you're seeing all these different ideas. But it's like, I make it a point to go in my local community. So wherever you are, see burlesque in your local community.
Yes.
And like at a random show, I see a performer do something that I'm like, how did your brain put these two? Like, I saw a performer bake a cake by mixing the ingredients on her own body, and by the end she's just, and you're just like, I don't know why I'm turned on and hungry at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you just never know what you're gonna see.
exactly. And I love that because I'm a dancer. So like when I was untying myself, I was dancing and then I was like, because I was already thinking about like the rhinestones and everything. Because I was like, I just love rhinestones and I don't want to do nudes. So I'm like, great, we're gonna do rhinestones. Love that. But then I started untying myself and I was just naturally dancing and I was like, did I just come up with an act?
I think so.
And that's how it happens when there's so much room for everybody. And we mean that in both like the literal and the figurative
Yep.
sense. Like every human body, if you have a body, you can do burlesque.
Exactly.
And if you have a weird creative idea, you can do burlesque. And I've seen people do burlesque in ways that they weren't like really going even down to pasties. They were
No,
going
you don't
down to
have to.
different levels.
Yeah.
And that was a misconception that I had early on too, because before I started doing pole and like really coming into myself as a sensual performer, I was like, well, I don't want to, because I wanted to do burlesque. And I was like, well, I don't want to have to go down to the pasties and a thong and stuff like that. Now I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Because when you really express yourself creatively, then you're like, who
like,
even
I'm
cares?
down.
Like, this
Yeah.
is my art. Like, great.
Yeah, enjoy.
But that was one of the misconceptions. So I'm curious what other maybe misconceptions that you might see in your work.
Yeah, I mean, and just to say, the first thing I say in class to all my performers is you never have to take off more than you want to.
Yes. Yes.
Like, if you want to be in bloomers,
do it.
And like a full, that is fine. Do not ever let anyone tell you you have to take off more than you want to. If you want to go down to pasties, please do. If you want to go down to a thong, the more the merrier. But if you don't want to, please don't.
Yes.
Don't ever feel pressured to do it. There is a space for you no matter where you're going, right? So it definitely is a huge misconception. And I have a lot of students that even in their first performance, they maybe want to keep the bra on, and down the road, they're like, okay, I can give up that security blanket.
Yeah.
But knowing that you can do that, I think, the thing that held me back from burlesque for a long time is I was just like, yeah, I'm not a dancer.
Yeah.
Like, I took dance in high school to get out of PE.
Oh my God, I wish that was an option for me. I would have definitely done that. Oh.
I went to an arts high school.
Okay, great.
So
I wish I did.
Yeah, it was amazing. And we did have that option, but it was like, that was my only really dance background. I didn't feel like I was super coordinated. I am not flexible. So I'm like, oh, but you've got to be able to do the splits. You've got to be able to do high kicks. You've got to be able to learn all this complicated choreography. And none of that is true. And once I really started seeing burlesque in Los Angeles, my burlesque mom and the godmother of many burlesque performers here was Lily Von Stoop.
Yeah.
And I went to her show and it was like, I saw everything on that stage. I saw someone in their 50s. I saw, someone who was high kicking, doing all the things. I saw someone on point,
I love that. Ugh.
I saw a mom who had a C-section scar. I saw like all the things, and it was just like this moment of like, hold on a second. Like, yeah, I'm picturing Dita Von Teese and I'm picturing the showgirls and I'm, picturing from old movies because that was where I'm a big vintage buff.
Yeah.
And so my sort of vision of burlesque was from these old movies where all the women were perfect.
Yeah.
And that's just not how it is. I mean, yes, if you go to Vegas and certain shows, they're going to be very specific on body type.
Yeah.
But that is not the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, you go to Paris and you see the showgirls there too. And it is, Moulin Rouge, which is like Disneyland for sure.
Right.
But also, Crazy Horse and other shows, they are, listen, all of the women look exactly the same. It is a very specific look. But I think also to a degree, they have their own creative vision. And that is what that specific show is. And that's what people are going to see that specific show for.
Yeah.
But when we get out of a specific show that has a specific creative brief, and like, shit, we could talk about ballet because that's a whole other thing of like
Yes.
normalize more bodies in ballet. But when you think about burlesque as a whole, it's like, no, everyone can do this. I've seen people in wheelchairs do burlesque. Like literally everyone can do it. It doesn't matter what you're working with. It's that you want to be showing up in this way and you want to express your creativity and sensuality and sexuality and like maybe none of those things, whatever it is for you.
I mean, maybe you want to make a statement about your rights as a woman to take off your clothes, and the woman who holds the title for the most burlesque awards in history, and I think she surpassed that maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and she's still going. She is a plus size Black woman with a huge juicy booty, like everything you think about with that. And when she started performing, and the Egypt Black Nile, it's her name, look her up.
Oh my God, she's amazing. Yes.
So amazing. And she shared with me that when she started, she actually there was a little bit of mean girl going on, and some girls were kind of telling her like, well, I mean, you can do that neo stuff, but you can't do classic. Like she was like, oh, I can't.
Watch me.
Watch me, and then watch me win a title. And then, I mean, because it really is like, I'm not saying it was like that 10 years ago, but now it is very accepting. And also of all genders and all gender expressions. That is another thing in burlesque that it's very funny to me. People tend to like, I'll meet guys and they'll joke and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to take your burlesque class. Ha, ha, ha. And I'm like,
do it.
You know that you can.
Yeah.
Like,
do it.
That's called boylesque. And they're like, boylesque. I'm like, no, that's a thing. Like,
go to Slipper Room. Go to Slipper Room, New York City. You're going to see some of the best boylesque I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, they're incredible there.
I mean, the reigning burlesque Hall of Fame Miss, or the queen of the tease, is a man, Samsonite. He's absolutely amazing. And he performs completely as a male.
Yeah.
But, we also have male performers that perform in kind of a drag hybrid. Like they might be in lingerie, but still have like male makeup or not, or full glam. I mean, Jake Dupree is full glam, but fully a man. Like he's sculpted, super built, all these things, but he's out there in higher heels than I can wear.
Ooh.
And gorgeous lingerie. And he was at Crazy Horse. He's been all over. And it's just like those gender barriers are breaking so quickly, and more audiences are open to it. I mean, I definitely, when I started producing Babylon Cabaret, which was in 2017, we were very sort of careful because we had a classic audience. And we're like, well, we want to have a male performer every show, but we're kind of like riding that line and kind of keeping an eye on the cisgender straight white men in the audience, because you could kind of tell they would get a little uncomfortable, or they would kind of do this because God forbid
they're afraid to look. Like, it doesn't make you gay to look at a man.
Right.
Like, come on.
They're afraid they're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so we always were kind of keeping an eye on that and pushing the audience, because it's like the more you see it, the more you normalize it.
100%.
And I remember Kirby La Brea, and he's absolutely fabulous. And he came up to me before a show and he was like, Miss Bent, is it okay if I wear these boots? And they were like super high heeled stripper boot, and I'm like, yeah, go for it. Yeah. And he's like, okay, you sure? I'm like, sure. Go for it. If you can dance in them, go for it.
Yeah.
You know what?
More power to you.
And if it makes someone uncomfortable, good.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what art is for. Art is to, I mean, it's for so many things, but part of what art is to expand our understanding of humanity and expand our access to humanity and all of the different ways that humans exist and express and feel and think and all of these things. Going back to your point of making a political statement, I've seen burlesque that is literally political statements written on bodies or on signs, and that's brilliant and beautiful and important.
Yeah.
Or I've also seen last year the hot dog act.
Where you're like, again, how did this woman come up with she's a hot dog in a bun
In a fucking bun
that she takes off with a shimmy belt of hot dogs?
So many buns.
And then and I think the mustard was her boa.
Yeah. It was so good.
My brain doesn't work that way. And so whenever I see that kind of stuff, I'm just like, I want to live in your brain for 30 seconds just to hear how that came.
Like, how did you do where? Yeah, I think that too. When I see incredible performances, specifically in burlesque, I'm just like, okay, how?
Yeah.
Can I have a little bit of that creativity? Because wow.
Yeah. I'm like, just tell me where the idea started.
Yeah.
Like, did you see a hot dog and you were like, I'm going to be that?
Yeah.
Did you hear the song and just think hot dogs? Like, it's people are amazing. And human beings are so creative, so diverse, so amazing. So honestly, wherever you live, go see burlesque.
Yeah.
And if you go to a show and you don't like it, go to a different show.
Because there's so much.
All so different. You may go to a super classic show and you're like, cool, that's what burlesque is. Right and wrong.
Yeah.
That is one kind of burlesque. And then, you can go to a show that's actually coming back to Los Angeles called What the Fuck Less. And you will be saying that in the audience.
Yes.
Like every act, you're like, what the fuck? So
I love it.
If you went to that and you were like, oh, this is burlesque. Again, like you're going to go to another show and be like, well, hold on. They're not.
Those are very different.
Yeah. I thought they were supposed to all be insane.
Yeah.
And so there's just so much. And depending on where you live, like, go out and experience it.
Yeah. And the performers, they are doing different things because you're not just seeing dance. And some people really go heavy on the dance and other people, like, they're not dancing at all.
Yeah.
And then there's the other school of thought that's like burlesque performers don't ever go on the ground. Like you're always up high versus the down low and like the controversial conversations there, which is really similar to pole dancing. And it's like pole dancing are not strippers and we're not strippers, we're fitness. It's like, who the fuck do you think you learned this shit from? Like, let's not shame anybody. If you don't want to be a stripper, you don't have to be, but don't shame anybody on any side of the coin.
Yeah. Like know your history, know where you're from.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely an issue with pole. But I see that in burlesque too.
Yeah.
Because again, like I am a classic performer. I do more neo acts. I do a protest act where I have words written on my, body and people are very surprised when I do it because they're like, oh my God, I didn't like almost like I thought you were just pretty. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I mean, thanks.
But also,
like,
she's got depth.
Yes, I do have thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
But and when I teach my students, I tell them like, I'm going to teach you classic burlesque, but like with any art form, you learn the fundamentals, you learn the basics, and then you go do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Pablo Picasso learned Renaissance art and then fucked with it.
Yeah. And he caught so much flack for that.
Right.
So much. Same thing with Dali. I love Salvador Dali. And the two of them were friends. Like they were buddies.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know until I went to an exhibit at the Dali Museum. I used to live in St. Pete, Florida. And the museum was there. So I was a member because I love Dali. And they had a Picasso exhibit. And it was really, really cool to see both of their journeys. because we don't
as
really
they
get to
came to
see
each
that too
other.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were buddies and they met at like a surreal magazine or group or something like that together.
Yeah.
But if you look at Dali, which, you know, he's like melting clocks and the tall elephant and all these weird surrealist things, he started super traditional. He was a traditional artist.
Yeah.
Not getting weird, not doing anything. He was painting fucking fruit bowls and you know, flowers.
Right. And he was just like, for some reason, I'm not into this.
This isn't
you
my
know?
thing. And so he took that base, just like you said, and did some of the most extraordinary surrealist art that we've to this day ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's like part of why that art was so impactful is because when he paints a clock, it's a gorgeous clock.
Yeah.
But it's a melting clock.
Yeah.
You know, so I immediately see it as like a piece of art, but the clock is not what I expect it to be.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Which is comedy also.
There you go.
You know, like comedy is the unexpected. It's expecting one thing and being surprised by something totally different. That's kind of part of what comedy is. It's like, oh, you expect XYZ to happen, but now we took you over here and whoa, that's weird.
Right.
So, you know, and that's a little, you know, if you're going to a burlesque show and now you're seeing neo burlesque, you're like, oh, I thought I was going to see this glam and now I'm over here. And that, I love that mix I mean, obviously sex and comedy is very much my thing. But I love that aspect of burlesque too. And the fact that we can be in these sexual spaces and these sensual spaces and it can still be funny.
Yeah.
Like the comedy aspect of burlesque is something I think is just so magical.
I mean, because funny girls are sexy.
Yes.
Like, and I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I mean, I'm having fun when I'm having sex.
Yeah. Yes. It's
I'm
play.
not like
It's
serious.
fun.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love like, even as a classic performer, building little comedic moments where I'm jacking off my glove.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, because it's fun. It should be fun. Like, none of us are getting paid enough for it to not be fun.
True. That's a testament to all live theater.
Yes, correct. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that being sexy and being like sultry doesn't have to be like, I don't have to be super serious all the time. I can seduce you and
You just
still
totally lured me in, by the way. I was like, oh my God, whatever you're saying, yes.
Good, I'll remember that.
Yeah, good. It works. It works.
But yeah, I mean, I could probably do the same by just being flirty and fun with you.
Yeah.
You know, I might have to work a little harder,
but it's inviting and it's disarming. Comedy is disarming. And when you're bringing people into a space that is uncomfortable, which for most people is a sexual space, it is nudity or any indication of sex and all the things that we feel shame over. That can be really uncomfortable. Going to see burlesque can be a very triggering thing for a lot of people because of how we treat sex and sexuality, and especially the sensual arts. But then when we have this little comedy break, it kind of cuts the ice a little bit, which is why the MCs are amazing because they do cut the ice and they are the foreplay and they're getting everybody warm and ready and making it okay to be sexy and funny all at once.
And to like enjoy it. You know, I mean, it's great. You just call the host foreplay. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause they're warming you up. They're like, hey, guess what? It's okay for you to enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really funny, but a good host will tell the audience, like, you can cheer. And they'll actually usually say, like, let's test it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, if I do this, you cheer a little bit. Because if you don't, it's really funny. The audience will sit there silently.
Yeah, because they don't know what to do.
They don't. Especially, and I do appreciate this, men are told not to catcall women, not to stare, not to oogle. And now we're like, oh, no, you're allowed to. Like, it's okay. In this space, at this time alone, you get to do all the oogling, all the enjoying, respectfully.
Respectfully. Yeah.
But like, this is the place you get to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's okay here, you know, and you do need your host to, just like any sexual encounter, say, we're good. Like, here's where we are. You're comfortable. I'm comfortable. Great. Yeah. These are the rules, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why like that, the opening is so important because you're like, hey, this is how the night's going to go. It's like a good negotiation before
Yep.
having sex. It's like, this is what we're expecting. This is what we're going to provide for you. And this is what we want back from you. Is that okay? Is everyone on board? Are we good here? That's great. Now let's get on to the show. And I love that you raised the point of giving men a safe space to express objectification, because we don't want to objectify humans ever. We don't want to whittle human beings down to an object. That's wrong in all situations. Women do it to men do it to women, all humans do it to each other, regardless of gender. We do it to non-binary and trans people far too fucking much, probably more than anybody else. And so giving people that space to be like, yes, indulge in cheering somebody on for taking their clothes off, indulge in the beauty of this person, indulge, scream, hoot, holler, yell. That's what we're here for. We are here in celebration of the human body and all of its creative expressions of sexuality and sensuality and weird, quirky stuff.
Yeah, and we all love it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one of my favorite parts about burlesque is that I see a lot of couples in the audience.
Yeah.
And I tend to have a lot of women that will come up to me after the show and say, "You're my husband's favorite. Can I take a picture of you with him?"
Cute.
And I'm like all three of us go, no, just you with him.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, how wonderful is it that that woman felt comfortable enough for her husband to say, she's my favorite. And she's like, great, let's get a picture of you with her.
Yeah.
Like you like her, you're attracted to her. Like, let's take that memory home with us. And usually the guy's very shy about it, you know,
Mhm.
and the wife is the one that's like, yeah, come on, go. I'll put your arm around her. Is that okay? You know, like
Cute.
it's like so endearing, you know, and I'm like, I hope that that couple goes home and fucks all night long.
Yes. I often say I love supporting people's sex, whether it's through coaching, through workshops, or through literally just performing and being a sensual artist. It's such a gift to be able to be like, this is how my body loves to move. This is what I love to do. And if that's going to help you fuck better, let's go.
Yeah.
That's like at play parties, I don't really play that much. Like, I dance, I move. I'm like, let me be your art. Let me be your foreplay. Enjoy this. Like, oh, he's eating you out. Watch me. This is great. Like, everyone's having a good time.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. Like, because it is, it is the foreplay. It is the gift. And when you can engage in that type of an activity with your partner, regardless of what type of relationship you're in, cis or not, not cis. For cis people or not, but like whatever your sexuality is, whatever your relationship dynamic is, when you can experience something like that together, and you don't have to be at a play party, like going to a burlesque show and be in that fun, safe, sensual, sexual space, it's a great way to warm you up. What a great date night. Yeah. They're the best date nights.
Oh, that's the majority of our audience.
Mhm.
We have mostly couples, a lot of date nights, and then groups of women. Yeah, because who doesn't like seeing other women take their clothes off?
Truly.
But yeah, it's not a ton of single men, you know, because I honestly think it's a little strange for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's not quite a space they understand.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not a strip club where they're interacting more with the performer. They're like sitting in the audience, but they're still allowed to interact. And so I think, you know, for whatever reason, it's not necessarily as comfortable of a space for them. And I'm like, that's fine. Bring a date.
Yeah. Bring
That's
someone.
even better. Yeah, it's even better. And if you can bring a date, the two of you can sit there and you can admire another woman without there being any jealousy, or another man, because a lot of shows have male performers.
Yeah. Or a non-binary person.
Any expression, right? Where you can both be like, ooh, I really like that. Ooh, I didn't think I would like that, but ooh, and, you know, how great is that for your relationship?
Yeah. It's really empowering. And I think that that's the thing that perhaps men can feel intimidated by, because it is a space where women are extraordinarily empowered, and that can feel like an unsafe space for men because they don't know necessarily what to do with that all the time. Plenty of men do. I'm obviously generalizing, but we live in a society and in a world where we don't get to see women in their in their power, in their sensual power, in their sexual power. So I think that there's one underlying aspect of that, whether they're aware of it or not, that's like, this is an intimidating space for a single guy or a group of guys to go. It just is, because it is different than a strip club where they feel like they are the ones who hold the power. They absolutely are not. It's absolutely the dancers that
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert, that is just as empowering as a space. I hate to break it to you. Y'all ain't running shit. But because of culture, and because I think the nudity aspect also, I think that there may be that it's disarming, and they feel like they're the ones in power because it's all about giving the money and blah, blah, blah. And so now we're dealing with power dynamics, which is what we all deal with in the bedroom too.
There we go.
But yeah, it is an interesting thing to look at when you're looking at the power dynamics of a strip club and the power dynamics of a burlesque show, because the women definitely do hold the power in both of those spaces. But society has taught us that they hold the power in the burlesque space because they're not showing their nipples or whatever.
Right.
But they're not holding the power in the strip club space, which they absolutely are, because they have the power to dance, not dance, get somebody kicked out, get them thrown away. Like, I mean,
who you give a lap dance
100%.
to. I mean, yeah. And I think you're right. Because I think why couples come to burlesque is because the woman feels comfortable.
Safe. Mm-hmm.
She feels very safe, very comfortable. I don't see a lot of couples at strip clubs.
No.
I mean, I still love going to strip clubs, but I love going to a strip club on a date, or I used to love going with a group of guys.
Yeah.
And, because it's fun, and it's like, if I've got the cash, it's great. I'm there to have a good time. But I typically would be one of very few women in the club who are not performing.
Same.
Yeah. And like, again, I'm super comfortable, but I understand how it could feel uncomfortable to someone else. Whereas at a burlesque show, I think women just feel much more comfortable bringing their date or coming, with a group of girls.
Yeah. And I think that now I'm just like, philosophizing, but I think that there's also an element of women might want to be the woman on stage at a burlesque show because how we see burlesque performers, but she doesn't want to be objectified the way that she feels the women on the stage at a strip club are being objectified. And so again, like, we're playing with these power dynamics. It's all like everything around us is power dynamics. In a lot of my workshops, I do talk a lot about the power dynamics, because that is what cuts in the way of our sensuality and our sensual expression outwards in the world and in the bedroom as well. Like, everything we're dealing with power dynamics wherever we go. It's really interesting when you start to dig into that and how that impacts your sex and your sexuality. But I think that that's a big part of all of this conversation.
I never thought of that. So this is super interesting. I feel like you're going to have to trim this. I'm going to be here a while.
Yeah, it's, I think it's like, it feels a little out of the woodwork when I'm like bringing people in for a sensuality workshop, and like, now we're talking about power dynamics. But it's like, listen, babe, what do you think is one of the things that are stopping you from showing up in your power, by the way, but showing up fully as whoever your sensual persona is, whoever your erotic persona is? And the same thing goes for men too, because if they were to, let's say, be more sensual or like pegging or enjoy something like that doesn't feel as masculine, which is all bullshit, then again, we're playing with power dynamics. So, which, by the way, it was why a lot of people like pegging too, outside of how it feels, because the prostate is there, but it's
the power
being dominated by a woman. It's these power plays. So the power dynamics of all of it impacts us in so many ways. And I think when we go into that burlesque space, it's an extraordinarily empowering place for women. And so now they can bring that into the bedroom, and that's a turn on for their men. When a woman can stand in her sensual power, whatever that is, and maybe her sensual power is very masculine, great, good for you. That's whatever it is for you. It's so fucking sexy, which is why performers are so sexy. It's the confidence, it's the power that they hold on a stage.
Yeah, you're very vulnerable in the bedroom, right? Like, you're saying, hey, this is what I like, you know, do you like that too? Do you want to do this with me? You know, it's very vulnerable. And, you know, a lot of women feel very vulnerable just taking their clothes off, right? Am I going to be judged? What's he going to think about this? Or what's she going to think about this? And men too. Look, like men have as many body issues
Yes.
as women. And when you go into trans, like there's just so much vulnerability when you get into the bedroom. But giving that power back, I think makes it just so much easier to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't, when you feel powerful, it's easier to say, okay, look, hey, I'm really into this. Or maybe I don't even know if I'm into this, but I saw it on a thing and I want to try it.
Yeah.
You know, so whether you think that's weird or not, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
This is what I want. And either it's going to happen with you or it's not. And either way, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm standing in my power and what I want.
Yeah. But if I don't ask, we'll never know.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's something else with just being around nude bodies. Studies have shown they did God, I have to look up the study. It's been a while, but there was a study where they had people having conversations with clothes on and people having conversations with no clothes on. And the study found over time the people who were having conversations without any clothes on, they gained more body confidence the more they were naked and the more they were seeing other people naked. So when you're going to a burlesque show and you're seeing all of these different body types, not wearing much of anything at all, that's actually really helping your own self-image because it's normalizing all of the different types of bodies that are in the world and the confidence that different people have in their bodies and in, again, their sexuality and sensuality and just like putting it all out there. So it's go to burlesque, y'all. Go see burlesque shows.
I think it's so interesting too that, you know, people think I like this. I like a woman who's your size. And then they see me perform and they're like, holy shit, wait, I really like that.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even think that I could like that. Or they see a plus size performer and they're like, whoa, suddenly I'm really turned on by this body type that I, because of society, thought I just never gave a second look to.
Yep.
And now I'm, oh, wait a second. Now I need to give that body type a little more attention, you know? So, I mean, I've had many men tell me like, oh, like I didn't think about a fuller figured woman until I met you. Or until I found you and followed you. And now like a fuller bodied woman with big curves, which is not the same as like a very thin woman, you know, oh, suddenly like now my horizons have been broadened, you know? So that's another thing that I just love burlesque for, because I think it makes me more comfortable when I'm backstage and I'm seeing all these body types. If I'm like, oh, I'm really bloated today, I really don't feel great. And then there's another woman who's like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well then fuck it.
We're here. Let's be bloated.
Okay, we're
here. It's the bloat show.
Like, and you know what? No one in the audience is gonna know.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
But it makes me feel more comfortable, like you said, just being around more women, seeing more body types. And then I think for everyone in the audience, it's just like variety is the spice of life.
Yeah.
And until you really see it and you see it in a sexual context, you may not even think about that body type.
Yeah. Yeah, because you haven't had exposure and the only exposure that you've had has told you like that's not good and that's not what it should be and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's not in Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, so you can't be attracted to it, you know.
And at the end of the day, it is how we stand in our confidence. And sensuality has nothing to do with what your body looks like or how big your boobs are, or how big your butt is, or how small your waist is, or, you know, whether or not you have cellulite. Everybody has cellulite. That's normal. These are
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. Everybody's got cellulite, even the little skinny ones. So it is so important that we're just seeing people stand in their power and like how inspiring is that? Just to see somebody also that's like super skillful that can like do one tassel boob at a time. I'm like, what? First of all, I'm pretty sure my boobs are too small to even do that. I don't know. I got to buy some tassels.
It's easier when they're smaller.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a
Interesting.
physics thing. So you don't have to move
as much
because they're sticking
to you
straight out.
Yeah.
Whereas like when they're bigger, I've got to move
a lot. Yeah.
Whereas like you can just do a little
just like
yeah.
Love that. I gotta get some tassels and try.
Okay, I'm holding you to that. There's a couple. You have some homework.
Okay,
I
do. Yay! We love homework.
Good.
Okay, wait. So speaking of homework,
yes.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born in California in Thousand Oaks. And then my family moved to North Carolina when I was in 9th grade. When I was 9. So it was summer between 3rd and 4th grade.
Okay. So did you, I don't think you probably would have gotten anything in California before you moved.
Nope. I moved like right at the time so that I got my first sex ed class in good old North Carolina.
Ooh, that must have been something.
4th grade.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how they do it now, but back then, so they split up the boys and the girls. So the boys went in one class, the girls went in the other. And we watched a video about, and I think I remember it very vividly because I was afraid to swim after seeing this.
Yeah.
But it's a girl and they're all at the pool in the summer and she gets out of the pool and someone's like, "Oh my God, are you bleeding?" And she's like, "Oh my God." And everyone sees it and it's a big thing. And so, yeah, for the rest of my life, I was always afraid that like, oh, if I go swimming on my period, like it's going to just gush out everywhere, which does not happen.
It doesn't.
That's not a thing.
That was a very real fear though.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking that too.
Yeah. And so we watched the video and then they're like, okay, great. Now the girls are going to watch the boys video. And the boys video was like, the older brother is like doing something and the younger brother like reaches up and he's like, "Oh man, your pits stink." And it's like, what? And then it's like somehow they start talking about premature ejaculation and the girl, we're just like, what?
There's so much happening.
Like, hold on. We went from like stinky armpits to like, what is that? What comes out of where?
Oh my God.
No discussion. Wow. No question and answer. No, nothing. Just like, okay, great. We saw the video. Go to recess. And so we're all at recess. Like, are you premature ejaculating?
Are you doing that right now?
Like, what is that? And the guys are like, "Are you on your period?" And it's just like, no. I mean, no. Like, why? It was just, so that was 4th grade. And then I didn't have it again until middle school. And in middle school, it was part of health. In North Carolina, as with much of the South, it's abstinence only education. So the only way to not get pregnant is to not have sex. The only way to not get an STD is to not have sex, which is not true.
Yeah.
So they don't teach you about condoms. They don't teach you about birth control. They teach you about your cycle, but they don't teach you at what point in your cycle you can get pregnant, like how all of that works. They, and I believe it's still this way now, are not allowed to talk about homosexuality. There is one kind of sex. It is a penis going in a vagina. That's it. It goes nowhere else. And
spoiler, it does.
Yeah, it's, I mean, for me, and I'm sure this is like part of the point of the podcast, is in like this vacuum of information, like you just get it elsewhere.
Yeah, like absolutely. You're getting it from like kids, you're getting it from media, you're getting it from like whatever kids can get their hands on is what they're getting. And it's bad information.
I mean, I remember, so being on the bus, I was in 6th grade and someone said something about a blowjob. And like, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, blowjob. I know.
Totally know what that is.
And then me and my friend got home and we're like, okay, like, what do you think that means? And like, we got enough that it had something to do. The girl did it to the guy and he enjoyed it. So we like got that and we're like, okay, so you think she like blows on it?
Yeah.
Like, is there a blow dryer involved? Like, we're like literally.
What does it even mean?
Yeah. Like blowing what on where with what? Like, and then I don't know how I actually figured out what it was, but I remember like that moment of like hearing that word, not wanting to ask what it was, and then just because it's not clear from that what exactly that means.
Not at all.
Yeah, what body parts are involved. And, so yeah, just being so confused.
Yeah. A lot of confusion, a lot of weird conversations. And, it's interesting just thinking about like things that we didn't know. I didn't know that people didn't get circumcised until like I was in college. I didn't know what an uncircumcised penis was like until I had one. And
Same.
yeah. And so like I'm Jewish. So like, everybody, like in my brain, everybody got circumcised. I never thought about it. I never had to because the people that I was with before that, they were all circumcised. So it never came up, pun intended. So the first time that I learned about foreskin, I hooked up with a guy in my dorm. He was from like upstate New York or somewhere like that, where like people were not getting circumcised because that's just more like it's more in cities and more with Jewish people. I mean, obviously all Jewish people, but like when you get into more rural areas, there are less people who are circumcised because it's not as normalized as it is in the cities.
Oh, interesting.
Is what I learned. And so like in other countries, it's not normalized. I lived in New Zealand and like tons of foreskin, had all the foreskin, lots of foreskin. But in this specific case, we were in the dark and we hooked up like under a blanket or something like that. And it felt weird to me and it felt different. And I was like, what's wrong? Like, what is wrong with this man's penis? I don't know what's going on here. So I remember going back to my dorm and being like, guys, because my roommate was there, probably another flatmate was there or whatever, and her boyfriend was there.
Oh, okay.
And he was also from like a rural place. And I don't remember, but I think maybe he was also uncircumcised. But I was like, I don't know what just happened. I just hooked up with the guy and like, this is what it felt like. And I couldn't see. So it's not like I could actually like look at the penis to figure out like what exactly was going on. It just felt so different. And I was like, and it felt really smooth going back and forth. Like there was so much skin or like, I don't know what it was. And they were like, dude, he was just uncircumcised. And I was like, what? And we didn't have Google then. We had like Internet Explorer, like whatever.
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. Yeah. It was like, ask Jeeves. Like, I'm like, Jeeves, what the fuck is this shit? And so then I just remember looking up foreskin because I was like,
never heard of that
and
before.
I didn't get the opportunity to see, and I never hooked up with that guy again. But I was like, what? I was scared. Like I was literally scared.
You're like, did I break it?
What happened? What's wrong with this man's penis? Nothing was. Foreskin's beautiful. I just was ill-informed. And at this point, I was like 18 years old. I sucked a lot of dick by this point. Like, so, I was not shy to the dicks.
I think I had to be like a junior or senior in college. And it was so bad. So it was my best friend's, I guess it was her 21st birthday. So my best friend's 21st birthday, and her birthday was December 28th. So it's right after Christmas. So I would go visit her in her hometown. And so all her high school friends were around and we would do a thing for her birthday. And so we went out drinking and and her high school boyfriend was there because they were still friends. It was like little friend group, small town friend group. They had all gone to high school together. And, he had been kind of flirting with me throughout the night. And she was like, oh, he likes you. Like, go for it. And I'm like, your high school boyfriend? She's like, oh, I'm like so over it.
Yeah.
Like, have fun. He's a sweetheart. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And it was not dark.
You had the benefit of light.
So, I was like, what? And he kind of immediately knew, which again, like as an older, more mature person, I feel bad because I definitely was like, like it looks different, and he was like, oh, I'm not circumcised. And I was like, oh, like, what do I, definitely had not a great reaction to it, but he clearly had that reaction before.
Yeah, because that's what happens.
Yeah, and he just explained, oh, it's not a big deal, da 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 da. And I'm like, okay. So then the next day, I'm like telling her, I'm like, oh my God, you didn't tell me he wasn't circumcised. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. And I was like, oh.
Because high school boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, that's not how I was in high
Sorry, I
school.
fucked your boyfriend. She was like, oh, well, good to know.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my God. But I think you raise a great point, and it really comes back into this conversation of body confidence and body shame and all of these things. It's like this simple lack of education has created so much shame for men and boys who have not been circumcised, which like the circumcision part is the weird part. The fact that we are cutting off the tips of boys' penises is
mutilation.
fucking weird. It's genital mutilation.
Yes.
And
We're
I
both
say
Jewish,
that as a
but
Jew. Yes. Okay. We're both Jewish. Part of why I don't have kids is like, I am never making that decision for a boy. Like, and I don't think I could live with myself if I did that to a boy. Even if my husband, if I married a guy, was like, oh, you have to do it because that's what my penis is. I'd be like, that's fucking genital mutilation. I'm not going to do that to my son. I'm sorry. I cannot and I will not. And that's a whole loaded topic with the Jewish identity and everything like that. That would be like another hour's too long.
Yeah, we'll come back for that one.
Yeah. But, the normalization of circumcision has created a lot of shame and shame both ways, truthfully, because there are people who feel a lot of shame and guilt and a whole plethora of feelings because they don't have their foreskin. And that was not an option that they ever had.
Right.
They never had that choice. And so now they're having to deal with that their whole lives. And then there are also the men and the boys and the people who are uncircumcised and are dealing with all of us that we didn't even know it existed. And now we're like scared children because everybody's children, like even if you're in your 20s, like you're still a kid,
Yeah.
I mean, you're an adult kid technically, but like you're
still
a kid.
learning.
You're still learning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just another one of those disservices. And, the more bodies we see, the more we don't have to feel shame about what we have or don't have.
I love it. Yep. See as many penises as you can.
See all the penises.
That's the number one takeaway.
Yeah.
If
you take away nothing, please take away, see all the penises. I love that so much. This is such a fun conversation, which I totally knew it would be with you. And I could ask you, I could talk to you for hours. One thing I'm curious about, did you ever feel like as a burlesque performer, there was any sort of coming out for you?
Like to my parents?
Or to just anybody in your community that you were now taking off your clothes in some capacity, whether you kept the bra on or not, or whatever that journey was for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So when I started performing, I kept it very separate. There was nothing on my personal Facebook, nothing on my personal Instagram. Everything was on the Misspent Youth page. I blocked everyone I worked with, preemptively blocked everyone I worked with, blocked everyone in my family. Because I just felt like at first I didn't know if I was ever going to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just like, it was because again, I was like, I don't have the right body type. I don't have the right skill set. Okay, I'm going to try it. We'll see. I might suck at it. Like I don't know. I'm enjoying it, but like who knows, And so I kept it very separate because in my day job, I work in a very male dominated field.
Same.
And and it's honestly was very hard because I felt that I had to be very buttoned up. I had to wear looser clothing so that men couldn't really see my body. They would make comments anyway. It is like very inappropriate. In the film industry, so we all know Me Too. This was prior to Me Too.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough. And so just the idea of like letting people see me as a sexual being after I had fought so hard to not be seen as a sexual being was just like really frightening for me, and I had done a lot of modeling as a young teen, and then I kind of stopped because once I got tits, it was like, okay, we want to do Maxim style glamour. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm more than that. I'm different than that. And I did like a lot of art modeling and stuff in college. But at the end of the day, it would always come back to like, well, what you should be doing is this. You'd be making a lot more money. And it's like, obviously I know if I wanted to make money, I would have done that already.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm doing. So when I came out to LA, I really stopped modeling. I was really focused on my career and just very like hid my sexuality for a big part of my life. Um, and then I started performing. I wound up sort of transitioning out of the film industry and moving into a more like media job, which is still male dominated, but it's just a little bit different. I'm not on set. I'm not doing all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Um, and then it was like a couple years in where I just was like, this has now become such an important part of my life. I don't want to hide it anymore, and I really went back and forth with what to say to my parents. So, because I was doing a lot of pinup modeling again, and again, like not sharing a ton with my parents, but like every now and again, I was like, oh, I'm on the cover of this magazine and I'm in a bikini, but I'm covered,
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I'm on the cover of this magazine, my mom's like, oh my God, that's great. And I was with my parents, and my brother was at a baseball game because we're all American family. He was playing, and I was in my
Cute.
cute little 50s like play suit, out there to watch the baseball game. And my mom was like, oh my God, I'm such a cute little pinup. Like, I just love my little pinup daughter. And my dad said, don't call her that.
Oh.
And my mom's like, why? And he goes, I know what a pinup is. And my mom's like, okay, what do you think a pinup is? He's like, I know what Betty Page is. I've seen Betty Page. And I'm like, oh, Dad, like, yes, she was a pinup, but there are so many other pinups. But it was like, so I had that in my mind. It's like he has a very sort of like specific thought, just the doing pinup. And he didn't even know I was doing topless modeling. He just thought I was doing pinup stuff.
Yeah.
And it was already like there was a little bit of shame there from him that I didn't really like. So, I just sort of started slipping stuff into the conversation with my mom and just like waiting for her to kind of follow up, and I'm like, she's, what are you doing? Oh, I just got done teaching. Oh, what were you teaching? Oh, my dancers, my burlesque. Oh, okay. Like she was very kind of also, I think there was a little bit of like, if you don't want to know, then don't ask.
Yeah.
So I kind of let her ask. And then so the whole family just starts, talking. And my grandmother is actually very tech savvy, and she had figured it out before anyone else.
Good for her. Good for her.
I was like, she actually was visiting in LA, and she goes, we're out at lunch, and she was like, I have a question to ask you. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, who's Miss Met You? And I was like,
Ooh.
and
Well.
she was like, I looked up burlesque and I think I have an idea of what it is. And I was like, okay, like tell me what you think it is, and she was pretty dead on. And she said, well, I saw Miss Spent Youth has a show and I'd like to see it.
Bless
And I was
her.
like, you would, and so she actually was the first person in my family to come see me perform. And she loved it. And, but she knew my parents didn't know, and so she was always kind of like, you should tell them. Not again, like she was kind of like, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Like, you should tell them. And, so yeah, I was dropping the hints, and my mom did sort of start asking more. And then, my relationship with my parents were not super close.
Mhm.
So the fact that I was letting her in, I could tell, made a very conscious decision to not judge.
Good for her.
Like she was very like open,
Yeah. Like, this is my chance.
Yeah, this is my
Yeah, I love
chance.
that.
She's telling me something that she's obviously been doing it for a while.
Mhm.
So she hasn't told me about it up to this point. If I make a judgment, I'm not going to hear anymore,
Yeah.
So
I hope parents listening
Listen,
are picking up on that. Be open to your children.
yeah. And, my dad definitely, it was kind of the thing where, she's like, well, what do you want to do about your dad? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care.
Mhm.
Like you want to tell him, fine. If he's gonna be a dick about it, then he doesn't deserve to know,
That's it,
and
yeah.
like, it's not that he's trying to be a dick. He has years of programming. I don't have the time or energy to deprogram him.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not
like,
your job.
Yeah. So, like, you know, I really kind of don't care.
Yeah.
And then my sister, who is the complete opposite of me, she's like a soccer mom, 3 kids. All she ever wanted to do in life was get married and have babies.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, she's great, suburbs. And so she pulled me aside. I was like visiting. She pulled me aside and she's like, okay, so I know about the burlesque. You know, and I'm like, it's okay. It's not a secret. You don't have to
Yeah.
whisper, you know. And she's like, well, I think it's really cool. I think it's really amazing. Like, she didn't say proud. She was just like, I would never have the confidence to do that. And I'm like, okay. And she said, I just don't want my kids to know.
Ugh.
And I was kind of like, okay,
Well,
tell me why.
yeah.
She has 3 boys.
Okay.
Who at that time, I would say the oldest was probably like 11. And I'm like, well, you don't let them on Instagram anyway, right? You know, like, yeah, I don't think we should announce it to them now because they don't have a context for what it is.
Exactly.
So I was like,
They're
but,
so young.
you know, as they get older, like, you know, and she said, well, yeah, I just don't want, you know, I don't want them seeing you and then feeling weird about it. And I'm like, well, why would they feel weird about it? You know, and she was like, well, what if their friends see it and then their friends like are making fun of them? And I'm like, why would their friends make fun of them that their aunt is a burlesque star?
Yeah.
Like, what? Explain to me where you're sort of seeing this as a shameful thing. Like, it's fine, but you don't want your kids to know. Like, it was a very kind of like, I'm like, okay, I'm meeting her where she's at and I'm trying to understand kind of where she's at. And it was a little tough, but over the years, it's like, yeah, I didn't push and I kind of let them ask what they wanted. And during the pandemic, we were doing virtual shows.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, can I watch a virtual show? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
And she's like, is it okay if my husband watches? I'm like, I don't care if you don't care.
My job. Yeah, let's do it.
Like, why not? You
Yeah.
know? And so they watched the virtual show. And afterwards, I'm like, okay, what'd you think? You know? And she was like, it wasn't what we expected. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what did you expect? She's like, well, I don't really know what we expected, but it wasn't that. And I'm like, okay, like, did you hate it? It kind of sounds like you hated it. And she goes, no, it was much more of a production. Like it was it was a thing, you know? And that was when I kind of realized that they didn't know what burlesque was.
Yeah.
And so they didn't even really have a context in their mind other than she's taking her clothes off on stage. She's doing something sexual. Like, so it inherently has to be bad in some way or, you know, under the table.
Shameful or whatever.
Yeah, like we wouldn't want people to know. And so again, it was just like this thing of her dipping her toe in the water, da, da, da. And then she came to visit and she came to see a show. And same thing. It was just like, okay, I could see that it was like her perception of it was changing. Same thing with my parent. My parents came to visit and they both wanted to come to the show.
Yay.
And I was like, amazing.
Okay.
And I'm like, let's talk about my father. Cause I'm like, I want to make sure you understand what's going to happen in the show. And he's like, okay. And I said, cause my brother had come to visit as well. And I said, you know, what my brother did when he came was you can watch up until about this far into the act. And then I would say maybe look at your phone.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get up and go to the bathroom, like that's fine. Because to be honest, I don't really want to strip for my dad either.
Of course. Yeah.
You know?
I feel that. You know, it's hard to be in your sexual energy with your parents.
Yeah.
Let's just call that what it is.
But I appreciate that they wanted to come and support, you know. And my mom said he actually kind of, you know, was interested to see what was happening.
Of course.
And same thing with my brother and my sisters. They were just like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. these costumes are amazing. The music is amazing. The choreography is amazing. Like, I think they just thought it was like akin to a strip club where like I'm just coming out in a teeny bikini or something like that, you know? And so seeing me in a gown and doing a glove peel is like very different.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just kind of changed in all of them kind of like bit by bit. And my sister has like since told all her friends. All her friends follow Misspent Youth.
As they should.
And like I go to visit and like pick up the kids from school and they're like, "Ooh, I saw those pictures that you posted." Da, 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 da. You know, it's like really exciting for them. And so it's really just I was like, "Oh my God, like she's actually proud of it because
Yeah.
she's sharing it with her friends and not that she could vocalize that to me, but that's her way of doing that, you know?" And my parents have gotten somehow on my email list. And so again, like I talked to my mom and she's like, "Oh, I saw you had the show last night. How did it go?" Or, "Oh, you have the show coming up this weekend. Like, are you excited?" You know, so it's like they very much like once they saw it,
Yeah.
they're very much like now into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little tough in the beginning.
It's a lot of labor. I think for any of us that choose to go into any sort of sexuality work, sensual arts, anything like that, there's a lot of labor involved with anybody in our life because there's education, there's dealing, it's care. I mean, we don't carry their shame. It's not our jobs to carry their shame, but we are the recipient of their shame and of all of their emotions and their experiences and their preconceived notions and misunderstandings and everything like that. So, for anyone listening, just know how much work it is for us to deal when you choose to go into this life path and wherever that is, whether you're a sex therapist or an educator or a performer or anything in between or a sex worker, whatever it is, there's a lot of labor on us outside of the work that we're doing for the people in our lives.
Yeah.
So I thank you for sharing that story because it's a long journey and it's like a drip feed and it doesn't always work out as well as it did with you. And a lot of times people are just, you know, like disowned and horrible things just for, you know, doing something that's actually really good and important in the world.
Yeah, and I think, you know, my takeaway if you're in this similar situation where you're like wanting to sort of incorporate your family or get them more into it is to like meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if I had gone to them and been like, "I'm a burlesque performer whether you like it or not," and like, "Here's my tits.
Yep.
If you don't like it, disown me."
Yeah.
You know, it would have just been a lot harder.
Yeah.
Like, they love me. They wanted to understand. Yes, there were like a lot of things that were a little hurtful. They didn't mean them to be, you know, but again, like they didn't have the tools. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the background because once they saw it, I could see it click.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think a lot of people, I call them like this, you know, just your average suburban, you know, family. I don't think that they really understand what burlesque is, that they really understand what pole dancing is, that they really understand even like I have an OnlyFans, you know, like I don't even know how I would begin to explain that to them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, cause it's just, it's like mind blown,
Yeah.
you know, like they just kind of don't understand, you know? So it's like, just let me give you a little bit, you know, and it doesn't always work out well. I do feel very fortunate that my family has accepted me and found a way to be part of that part of my life because I never thought that that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
And so I'm so much closer to my parents because they're like, "How's the Hollywood Burlesque Festival coming?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this email update. Da, 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 da. Are you, da, 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 you know, like, do you need anything?" And like, I never imagined having them be part of my life like that.
Yeah. My dad made that banner for me that we had because he does signage and stuff. And so I was like, this is like the first little bit of him like having to actually see fuck.
Right.
And I'm at a
And
burlesque
talk about
festival talking about fucking like.
Oh, and then
Yes.
how did he?
Oh, well, so they know that I've been on this journey for like years also. So I'm like pretty deep into it. My dad has always been like super supportive. I'm lucky both of my parents did come up as artists. My mom was a model,
Okay.
and my dad was an actor and singer. So they both have come into that. But my mom has a lot of shame around it. And she's like terrified of me working in sexuality and working with men. And she's like, and when I started pole dancing, like none of that was comfortable or okay for her. And, I was actually shocked when I told her the name of this podcast. And I was like, you're not going to like it, but it's called Birds and Bees Don't Fuck. And she's like, no, I actually think that's really funny.
It's very clever.
And I was like, I know. It is.
You can't not like that.
Yeah. So, it's the same thing where it's like, they don't follow me on Instagram. They don't see any of the stuff. And it's just like, if you stumble upon it and you want to see, it's there. I don't share pole dancing with them. I'll talk about it and I'll talk about teaching and I'll talk about performances and stuff like that. But like, I keep it to a minimum. I just tell them, the bare minimum of what they would want to hear. Because of course, they, like your parents, want to be a part of my life, but they don't want to see my butt.
Right. Yeah. They want to be supportive.
Yeah.
But you have to make it manageable for them.
Yeah. I don't think either one of them want to hear me talking about cum as much as I do.
And uncircumcised penises.
And I'm also very obviously open about my own experiences. And I use that as a teaching tool and as a normalization tool. They don't want to hear about any of that shit. So.
Yeah. They're like, she's a virgin.
Yeah.
She's only been with Jewish men.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Where it's like, oh no. So, okay. So one thing that you would like to leave people with.
Oh, gosh.
What's like, anything maybe you wish people knew more of, maybe about burlesque or sexuality or sensuality or just like, about being a human or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I kind of feel like one of our sort of themes here is just be open to trying something new.
Yeah.
And I think I've been having this conversation with a lot of people lately because I'll have my 10-year burlesque anniversary next year.
Wow.
And if I go back 10 years from where I am now, like I could not imagine the life I have right now. Like no way. Where my career is, where my day job is, where my burlesque career is, the friends that I have, the things that I'm doing, the places I go. But it was like the burlesque door opened and I was like, I'll walk in, and it's like it just snowballed from there, So I just feel like you never know what door is going to be the one that leads you to a whole new world. And just being open in the bedroom, please be open in the bedroom, and just be open with life.
Yeah.
If you see an uncircumcised penis, be open to it.
Yeah. They're delightful, truly delightful.
Or, I mean, again, like if you're with a woman and you're not used to a hairy bush, or you're not used to it being shaved, or you've not been with someone who's transgender, like fucking try it.
Yeah. Just be open. Be open to what is possible and what can happen, because you truly do not know.
You have no idea.
Like I mean, I would have never thought that you and I would be sitting here. When I went to the Hollywood Burlesque Festival last year, which by the way, I only got into because I had messaged you because Rena was like, oh, well, my friend is running it. Get in touch with her because ticket sales ended. And I was like, oh, I didn't buy it in time. And then you're like, oh, let me open up ticket sales again. I didn't realize that they had shut down because it was like day of or something like that. And it was amazing. And like, I never thought that over a year later, I would have a podcast and that I would do a podcast at the festival. So, you just never know what can happen.
It's crazy.
I love it. So where can people find you?
Oh, so best place is Instagram. It's MS period spent youth. I am shadow banned, the illustrious shadow banned. So you have to type it all the way in. But if you type it all the way in, you'll find me. That's where I post most of my updates. You can also go to my website, losangelesburlesque.com. Nice and easy to remember. That's where you can sign up for classes and see all the shows that I produce, including the Hollywood Burlesque Festival. I'm on Facebook too, but that's a little tough because I'm like at my max friend limit or whatever. I think you can still follow me I don't know. I'm kind of over Facebook.
I don't know how Facebook works. 2020, I was like, I cannot with this place.
Yeah. I mean, I post a lot of events and stuff on Facebook. So if you want to follow me there, but yeah, IG is the place that I put the most
IG is
stuff.
the place to be.
Yeah, they can pay us for this.
Yes, exactly. If they don't shadow ban us, which I just realized now that when you type in my name, you also have to type in the whole thing.
You're
so
shadow banned.
I am shadow banned. I've known that for a long time, but now it's proven. I also got my pole dancing account got deplatformed and I had to fight to get it back. And only because of California state laws is the only reason that I got it back. So.
Oh, but most people do not get it back. So I'm very impressed with you.
Do not fuck around with the producer.
You're like, this bitch can read
legal documents. I'm on it. Also, my sister's a paralegal. So like,
Nice.
She's also like, send me this document or send me whatever. Ruby, I'm about to close the show.
She's like, I want one
I
more
gotta
spot.
tell people where to find me. Okay. If you like this podcast, please do subscribe, tell it to your friend. If you have a friend that is interested in burlesque, please send this episode to them. If they've ever talked about going to a show or wanting to try or anything, this is such a great episode. Or if you want to take your partner to a burlesque show, this is a great episode to share with them. Or if you need to break it to your family that you do burlesque, this is a great episode to do that with. I have a couple of workshops coming up. I don't remember when this is coming out, but I think it's going to be before any of this happens. So April 28th, I'm doing a sensual empowerment pole workshop where I do sensuality coaching and then we do some embodiment with pole dancing. So no experience is, I'll share the link with you. No experience is required. So we've got that one. Then on the 15th, I'm doing a couples intimacy workshop where we're going to go over some sensuality exercises. We're going to talk through your relationship to sensuality, how we communicate with each other so that my dudes, you can be a badass in bed, and my ladies, you can fucking step up to the plate and be your fucking sensual self. And it is for all genders and all sexualities as well. But a lot of my work focuses on that group because I just feel like we really need to help the dudes and labor can't be on the ladies. But it is open to all couples and friends. And then I also have a sensual movement sound bath. That one's going to be really fun with Sacred Sounds by Devin. Both of those two workshops are at Zula Den. That one's on the 22nd. So lots of fun stuff coming up. Go to birdsandbeesdon'tfuck.com. Although I have to put my workshops there. You can also go to ariellezadoc.com/workshops. That's where all the workshops are. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. That's all I got. I'm done talking. Goodbye.
Bye.